What's going on, guys? Valky here, and today's video will be a Trials of Constellation guide. Trials of Constellation is the new Hell and Nightmare raid replacement, rotating on a seasonal basis for you and other players to farm high-quality level 88 gear without the hassle of going through the labyrinth just to find and kill one boss over and over again. Really nice mode. It comes in a bunch of difficulties, so here's the bottom line. They removed a lot of the hassles for raid, so make sure you guys just do this because the gear here is worth it. We're going exactly on how it's done, what teams you should be used, and if you really want to push for the higher difficulties day one, how you would go about doing that. Let's fly. So as you go into the seasonal tab and you enter Trial of Constellation, you will come across the 3 bosses that we currently have. And you'll see that this is their gear that they're replacing over the Hell and Nightmare raid. You can clear these as many times as you like, it costs no energy, but the main thing is on the first clear of each month, that very first clear will determine what rewards you get. Difficulty for these bosses range anywhere from Hell to Nightmare, so just like those raids, to a new difficulty called Perdition, which is going to be like Nightmare raid, but much harder, and we'll go into how to clear that later on. But first, clearing a high difficulty will get you 3 things. You will have a slightly better loot table of the gears that you can get. The higher you go, as you guys can see, your starting rolls will go from about 38 equipment score, 32 to 38 to 42 on the highest difficulty. Here's the problem, no matter what you do, there is still a chance that you just get dropped the lowest starting grade gear, which, you know, it's fine. I think for a lot of players, many players, even myself, the lowest great drops will still be quite good. You will also get more upgrade points for your constellations, +1 per difficulty up, and more currency for your exchange rewards, and 75 per higher difficulty. Your upgrade points can be used in this screen here on Blessing of the Stars, and these will give you buffs that give your characters permanent bonuses in this mode only. And we'll go into how some of these buffs work later on. As far as currencies, you can come into this menu and purchase any of these rewards, and as you guys can see, 42 equipment score starting gear is quite good. There's a lot of charms, but most importantly, this is the one you guys really care about. It's Mologoras, and you get 3 per day. You can only purchase 3 per day, but they refresh every day, and unless you've really down bad for this gear, I mean, it is nice, don't get me wrong, I would just say, just buy the Mologora. This is probably the most Mologora income they have ever given us. Definitely try to take advantage of this. Now, before we get into each one of the bosses and approach doing those bosses, let's cover the Blessing of the Stars. I just want to go over this really quickly for those of you guys that are going to be confused. These are going to be the skill trees that you upgrade over the course of a season to buff your units, and the way this works, it will put in a unit based on their constellation. So in this case, it will be Leo, and here it's based on classes. So we got knights going on here. The next slot you can unlock will be rangers, followed by mages, then blue thieves. So they're very specific on what you can put on here. The very first slot that you get for free will fit a Navy Captain Landy, Fire Charlotte, or if you're really new, you could do the free character Victoria. And as you put characters in here, you'll fulfill the point requirements, and as you fulfill them, they will give you buffs. So here it gives effectiveness for all allies by 10%. This first tree will be for specifically against the first boss, the Fire Guy. Most things here bust your ice units, and don't forget, guys, these are mono elements. So the Fire Guy, you can only bring ice element, the ice one, you can only bring broccoli units, and the broccoli guy, you can only bring fire characters in. This one is going to buff your ice character against the fire boss. The Virgo one will be buffing your green characters into the fish boss, and finally Libra will be buffing your red characters up against the wheat. Any character you put into these buff trees will actually be disabled from the boss fight. So for example, here in Libra, I would recommend putting your adventurer Ross in, because your only other viable options for red Libra units are Nemesis and Holiday Euphine. And Holiday Euphine is a fairly important character that's going to come into play against the Weedlord boss. So unless you're willing to just, you know, put some spare gear with good points onto your Nemesis, probably just your A Ross will go in here and he will be out of contention for this game mode. So the number one thing to know about these bosses before you get into them is start on the Hell difficulty. A lot of people, myself included, are trying to push for Perdition week 1 just because it has a better loot table, and I think that's doable if you are a bit of an older player, if you have a stacked account. But if you're a newer newer player, just stick to doing Hell, and if your account is pretty solid, like kind of like that middle in between, I would say do Nightmare mode. Now, as far as the first boss goes, Magnar, the angry fire guy. I would say if you have Fenny and all of the stats that I put up, you could definitely do Perdition. If you have Fenny, but your gear isn't as good, or if you have no Fenny, but you have a lot of other characters and good gear, then you could do Nightmare mode. But finally, if you have no Fenny, no gear, just stick to doing Hell mode, and it should be fine. The gimmick for this boss here is that you want to defense break the boss as much as possible. Only use blue units, so blue units with defense break and Fenny are at a premium here. Another really good one is blue Tywin. Every time you supposedly inflict a defense break, you will see that the moon icon will go darker, and each time the boss attacks, the moon will go towards more sun. It lights up a bit more. Let's just call it sun and moon. So whenever you go to 0% on the moon, the boss will eat a big debuff and you can start hitting him for a lot of damage. As the run is going in the background, let me just share with you guys some stats. The first character and the most important character to have for this is Fenny. She can basically solo the boss. What you really want is just C damage, attack, and HP on your right side. You can definitely solo her, but the number one thing is when you're in phase 3, which is around when the boss is under 40% HP, you gotta turn off the auto and manually soul burn her so she can upkeep her healing against the burns. The required stats I would say are over 22k HP, max crit damage, and as high attack as you can get. If you have her, you should just be able to clear this game mode no problem. Now, if you also have this guy, Blue Tywin, you can auto this mode. If you really want a safe, maybe your gear's not there and you just want a really safe run, then I would say turn off auto and just soul burn your Blue Tywin until you get your guaranteed clear. The required stats for him are 27,000 HP, about 170-ish speed, and 110 effectiveness. And if you can get whatever level of Holy Sack you can get on. The setup here is you have Fenny in the back, Tywin in the front, and 2 HP imprints, just giving them a little bit more bulk and damage for Fenny. Full auto be fine if you have the Tywin, but it might take you a few runs to get the right RNG, because don't forget guys, if you're doing this on the Perdition difficulty, you are not supposed to be here. You are more brute forcing a later content than anything else. And as you guys watch this go, I have a couple of tips for you guys. If this happens to be your first turn and your Fenny gets stunned, you can just reset until you don't get the stun, or just play through it. It's really not that big of a deal. Every defense break you land, the boss closer over to moon, and if the boss attacks, he goes sun. If he goes full sun, you basically die. So make sure you keep defense break up, or just make sure you're soul burning your Fenny as often as possible. Of course, if you get everything done, you should just find yourself at the end of a Perdition difficulty clear. But here's the thing, you might just get a pretty mediocre piece of gear anyway. So, it is what it is, take it with a grain of salt, but if you have all of these things, congratulations, you clear Perdition. Now, onto boss number 2. This will be Aquila. If you have my exact setup with a swappable thief, I would say you could probably also clear Perdition. If you have maybe about half the setup, you're missing some units, missing some artifacts, I think you could definitely do Nightmare. The drop table isn't even that much worse. And of course, if you have none of what I have, then, stick to Hell mode, especially if you're a new player. The gimmick for this boss is counterattacks. You can only use your green broccoli units, so make sure you are picking up green units, putting them on counterattack set, and hopefully they have some kind of synergy with being able to counterattack a whole lot. That is the key to clearing this boss. The most important character for this game mode is going to be Green Charles. He just got buffed, and the buff is actually spectacular for being the most important character here. Everything he does is important. You want to permanently cycle soul burn his skill 3. Otherwise, you can just use his skill 1. I don't know where the buff for it is, but every time you skill 1, even without 3 buffs, it guarantees that he gets an extra attack. And the CR push on his skill 2 is super important for this content as well. For his exclusive equipment, you want the skill 3 cleanse EE, since you're going to be permanently soul burning his S3 for as long as you are playing the game. And yes, he needs counterattack set. I know he puts up counterattack stands, people have pointed it out, but he is going to have it stripped later, like super late into phase 3, and he needs to be able to naturally activate some kind of counterattack. So make sure you put it on. But if your stats aren't really low, like your damage is really low, for example, then I guess you could use a destruction set just to prop up his damage and hope your Green Violet or your Urvalin can clutch out the rest of the fight. Second character I would say is pretty important here is your other DPS, Green Violet. I just use my PvP Green Violet. Your artifact can be swapped to Violet Talisman just to get a little bit more later evasion. The reason why that is important is because the boss has bonus hit chance against you, so you're not guaranteed to dodge a blue unit here. It's better to just run Violet Talisman, raise your chances so you don't get hit as much late game. Once you get a couple of levels and your Blessing of the Stars buff in the future, I imagine imagine you can just swap it to a purely PvP build. Shouldn't matter too much. You can run him or an Evelyn. One of the most important supports you can get for this game mode is Roanna. The main thing with her is you just want to have 3 HP right side. It doesn't really matter what the rest of the build is. Ideally, you can be on counter attack, but if you're like HP defense or HP defense right side, she'll get you going and she'll get the job done. The main reason she is here instead of any other support is phase 2 onwards. When the boss summons a second fish, they're going to be chaining attack together and they're AoE attacks for days. The healing and combat readiness push will keep your head above the water, thus making her an essential unit for this fight. Another really important unit here is the green Leica. You're gonna need one of 2 builds, either really high speed with medium bulk like I have, or high bulk plus counter attack. And more counter attack always contribute to mooning this boss. Your main stats you're looking for are HP, and speed. The artifact you want to run here is Glow Wings. This is super important because it helps keep the injury off of your characters whenever you use her S2. It gives you a good chunk of damage, put up the barrier, and the boss's AoE attacks do not injure you. That is key here. Since combat readiness push is very important, anything that generates more CR helps. We're going to run the S1 exclusive equipment for green Leica. Since she's really fast, she's going to be CR pushing a lot of our character. Some of the tips and tricks you should know for this is your first turn order is Leica is going to S2, which pulls your Charles, and then your Charles will skip S3 the first turn. He's going to S1 and follow up attack. It is super important that every time you S3 on Charles, you burn your souls so that he keeps a permanent loop. Oh yeah, also make sure your Charles is at least minus cooldown Mola off of his S3. That's all you need for him to carry this run. Violet can just eat an apple and rip it. Roanna can just S1. And what you're looking to do is between Roanna's ultimate and green Leica's Glow Wings activation, you are trying to keep a permanent uptime on the barrier to take as little injury as possible. You'll still get him later on, but whatever HP you save is going to be more capital for you to push for that endgame kill. Because towards the end, you guys will see the clear. It is a RNG mess. It took me like 5 or 6 runs in order to hit this clear, and all it takes is green Violet getting hit once. He needs to dodge every single time, counter attack so you can get enough damage, and green Charles also needs to survive and activate to finally push you through with enough burst damage, closing out these bosses. If the boss's gear is something you really want, then you can also consider investing in one of the buffs here, since level 2 of the buff will make this fight a cakewalk. And with level 3, you can pretty much just auto it and you should be able to just close out the fight. And last of the bosses, you have Herals, the Weedlord of the bunch. Once again, guys, definitely do not try to push Perdition week 1, because I think out of all the people I know and everybody in the community I talk to, I actually have not seen a single Herals day 1 clear without any buffs. I'm not sure it's possible. There might be a solution, but I think it's just too hard. I've seen a couple of teams get super close, and I'll show you guys what those teams look like. If you are new and if you don't have like a perfect everything ready account, do not try to do Perdition for this. Only if you have like perfect unit, perfect gear, artifact, RNG, speed RNG, can you do Perdition with none of the blessing of the star buffs. If you have most of the units and gear, I would say just do Nightmare, and you could do it perfectly easily on auto. And if you got like nothing, well, do your best. This guy is one of the harder ones. The gimmick with this guy is you want to land burns. The more burns you land, the closer you get to mooning the boss. And every time you moon the boss, he's going to lose a whole chunk of HP. And you're going to have to be doing this a lot because you'll need to be able to repeat it 7 times on Nightmare and 9 times on Perdition. And in order to land those burns, you want 110% plus effectiveness on every single character. Every time he takes a turn, he's going to hit you with an AoE attack. If any one of your members is lower than his percentage HP, he's at 50% HP, and any of your team members is lower than 50%, you die. Given that turn order, it is super important for you to have some kind of high uptime healing Soul Weaver on your team, be it Mascot Hazel, Tamarin, Red Acades, or if you can actually get to level 2, like I have, then you can use Holiday Euphine as your main healer. If you survive your 9 turns on Perdition, 7 turns on Nightmare, I'm not sure how many turns for Hell, I'm assuming 5, then you just have to kill the boss one final time and you win. Honestly, once again, this boss is so unreasonably hard, I wouldn't even recommend Perdition without at least the level 2 buff. You can boost like a Dark unit, for example, Operator Sigrid like I have to unlock level 2, and then Holiday Euphine can be your healer here. And speaking of Holiday Euphine, she is going to be the most important character here. Your build is attack, attack, and speed right side, and you want to speed tune your entire composition behind her. But you know, it doesn't really matter that much since speed RNG is going to mess you up anyway. Level 2 buff lets you replace her as your healer. The important thing to here is you either want Junkyard Dog or Indestructible Guiders to inflict more burns with her S1. Another must-have character for this mode is Bihu. Main stats, attack, effectiveness, speed right side. The EE doesn't really matter. I think he's a must-have if you want to push for a day 1 without any buffs, or even with like level 2 buffs, level 3 buffs, especially on Perdition, since his S1 is always 2 stacks of moon, which is going to drop the boss's moon bar by 30%. After that, I think the next important character is Carrot. Attack, effectiveness, speed right side, and I think she's mandatory since she has the highest rate of burn landing in her S3 for an AoE. You do need Edicus on her since her skill 1 doesn't really stack burns and it's just not that helpful. The Edicus Scepter helps her come back on cooldown as often as possible. When your S3 is on cooldown, make sure her S1 goes into the ads to detonate their burn and also doesn't add to the respawn timer of the ads when you hit the boss. Your last unit is actually pretty flexible. Aramintha, Robin, Tamarin could actually all get it done. But the most important thing is I just don't think it matters because the difficulty of this boss on Perdition is so damn high, you need perfect everything to clear without any Blessing of the Stars buff. So, you know, just do your best with one of these characters. You really just want the burns. That should be it. One final tips and tricks here, guys. If you actually got close to these stats, just do Nightmare on auto. The rewards aren't even like that much worse, and it'll save you a lot of headache and the pain. So yeah, there you guys go. As you guys know, I'm usually really lazy. I don't like to read, so I try to find the easiest solution for every single one of these content types, especially new PvE content. And now that we have this, there you guys go. There's the lazy guide for all of Trials of Constellation. If you're having any difficulties, just go 1 level down and make sure you do it from hell. If you guys have any issues with hell comps, let me know either in the comments or in the Discord. I'll probably hop in and do a couple of test runs myself since this doesn't really cost energy and I'm down to help you guys complete this with whatever resources I can. That being said, that's going to be it from me for this video. I hope you guys have a great one. If you found the video helpful, do make sure to subscribe and like the video and maybe drop me a comment. It also helps small channels like mine a lot. It's going to be it from me. Thank you guys for joining me and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.